What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are working on the river kayaks and we're on a quest. We want to create the ultimate river vessel. So we're making some river modifications that we believe everybody should have because it just makes fishing on the river easier, more efficient, and more fun. So we're gonna dive in on these two vessels we got here. So we have Paul's Crescent Smalley. This is the brand new one, dropped in April. It's a smaller version of the Shoaly with a lot of modern modifications already, which is cool, but Paul has already done a bunch of DIY. We're gonna walk you guys through that in a second.
Jeff and I have probably rigged out, what, a dozen kayaks at least between us?
2 dozen.
We've done quite a bit, and we always do some custom mods like Jeff's pod that we got up here. That was a lot of brain power.
We got lights.
Brain power.
Look at all those lights. We got our USB, we got a little 5-panel switcher there, we got our Garmin set up. I will be the finder of fish with electronics today because Paul just got this Smalley, so we haven't put any sonar on it yet. Are you going to?
I am going to, and look,
okay.
Like I said, guys, a lot of this, whenever we're trying to do stuff and whenever we're trying to mod kayaks, it's not just necessarily for us. We're trying to figure out a hack for everybody. So Jeff's vessel is really the fully loaded, let's get her done. Maybe I'm in tournament mode or whatever. And then there's the relatively throw and go. Now, do I recommend every single one of these modifications? Not necessarily, but we're always trying something new. Like my foot steering here is really unique. We'll show that later. And so will my drag chain setup. So that's what we're trying to do here, guys. We're always trying to test out something new to get you the hack. Even it doesn't have to be every one, but maybe it's the one that fixes your day and gets you more fish and just makes you a little more relaxed. And like Jeff said, have a little more fun when you're fishing.
All right, so let us do some quick building, and then we want to walk you through the modifications we made, as well as a few of the new things that we'll be testing out for the day. Geese!
Can I get a second of silence?
We'll be back in a second.
So what we did was, I'm going to drill into this plate. Now the wonderful thing about, like, what makes this so great is this is actually a plate that lives on the boat full time, and this is where Jeff...
Why does it live there?
It lives there full time because this mount right here is actually for Jeff's trolling motor. So the trolling motor goes right on top. There's 2 holes on the sides right here. You put your security bar through and you're mounted up for trolling. You plug in right there. It's wonderful. And when you're not using it, it always looks like this. So this is bolted right to the hull, which makes it super sturdy.
Now, real quick, before anybody says anything, you can take anything and just mount it up on these front 1, 2, or 3 bolts if you want it super sturdy, which with an anchor that's holding all of the weight of your kayak in current, I would kind of recommend. You can buy this plate from New Canoe for $100, or you can custom fit your own starboard to make that work, or put something up here. I just wanted to call it out for any of the budget level DIYers. 100% you can do this super cheap if you want to.
You can also mount this on a track like I'm going to show you in a little bit. So you got a lot of options. So what we did is we kind of looked and said, okay, Jeff, which side do you like your anchor wizard on? That's the little spinny handle that has a line that's attached to the anchor. So we're gonna run that line along right by where that cup holder is. It's gonna come through here. And what I did is I said, okay, like where's the perfect spot for this? I want it coming off the front of the boat. And then I don't want the chute hitting the kayak or this plate if I can avoid it. We got about 1/8 of an inch of clearance here. And then we marked our spots. So we went through and said, okay, let's scratch out our 2 marks. And we're gonna have a bolt here at this hole and a bolt here at the back. Now, again, the cool thing about this is once I drill these holes, let's do that right now. I'm not gonna drill all the way through. I'm just gonna drill about 2/3 the way through. And that should be about perfect. And then Jeff's other mark is right here. We just scratched him out with a knife. And then I have to chew them out a little bit. So you see how I'm turning the drill just a bit? I'm opening up that hole just a smidge. Let's get our threaded insert. So this is called a threaded insert. It's called a threaded insert because it's threaded on this side for 1/4 20 bolts. That's 1/4 -20, and that's like the standard bolt thickness and threading that pretty much everybody uses in kayak fishing. Makes life really easy, and you can see it just screws right in there. So I'm basically going to add a point to screw in to mount the anchor wizard. You could put some glue in here if you want, or some epoxy if you really want it, but this counter threading is made so that as you tighten this, it actually is going to tighten in and really bite down into this plastic. So I drilled a pretty small hole here, and all I'm going to do is take the screwdriver that I'm going to ruin. I should have brought a mallet, that's on me, but I'm gonna take the bottom of my screwdriver and I'm just gonna, you can see it takes a decent amount of pressure. And now you have a flush mounted place to thread in whatever you want, including an anchor wizard. And then Jeff has the other one in his pocket.
Well, I was trying to film the content.
Yeah, you filmed that content. Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, you got it. And then we're just gonna do the same thing in the other one. And yes, I know I'm ruining my screwdriver. The only problem is I forgot a mallet. You just do what you gotta do.
Don't worry, it's a workforce. It's like $1 screwdriver.
Leave me alone!
55 cents.
You think I'm not budget?
Let's go. Yeah. Tell me I'm not budget now.
Now the beauty of this is I can have this on and off whenever I want. That's the wonderful thing about threaded inserts. So if you ever hearing someone talk about, well, why aren't they having threaded inserts? I don't have to drill a hole and permanently mount this. I can have it on when I am not using the trolling motor and I'm in the river, or I have the option of not having that, which is really, really convenient. Also, I'm gonna grab a washer to distribute that weight a little better. Washer, so I grabbed a washer here. That's just gonna help distribute the weight a little bit better, even better than it already is across this plate. You're just gonna get it started, which is actually kind of a pain. There you go. Grab my other bolt with a washer, and look at that, lines up perfectly.
I'm so excited about this.
I'm hyped. This is like one of my favorite hacks I've ever come up with. Then we're gonna grab our little doohickey here.
So with 2 bolts and a hex wrench, you can get this thing off and pop on your bow mount when you go hit the lakes, and you can do vice versa when you hit the river. So it's a nice little combo option for a modification.
Look at that. And that is rock solid, super steady.
All right, guys, anchor is set. Check this out. So I actually did a little swappy swap. We got our cup holder back here now. Anchor wizard up here, which is nice because you can see where the seat position is. I can just reach up, drop the anchor, crank it back up, and we're good to go. I've got the chute deployed right now so you can see how this would look. There is our large heavy duty carabiner. That's what you want to have there, and 2 chains. And one mod that Paul just pointed out to me is a good idea, is you actually hang the chains in the middle. These are just galvanized chains. You can go buy them at any hardware store. They're pretty dang cheap and they hold up forever. I've had these for like 4 or 5 years. And you just hook them through the middle, and that gives you a lot of ground coverage. So it's dragging more along the bottom, and that'll do a really good job of slowing you down when you're on the river. The other thing I would say is I'd recommend a lockable carabiner just so you don't lose those things. If you just have the normal like open close, there is a potential you bump into a rock, a boulder, a log, whatever, it could bump that open, you lose your chain, that's a problem. I would also say one other thing that we've learned over the years, Paul. What happens when you put a tire tube over this? First of all, it sounds like a really cool hack, because you would think sticks and stuff are gonna go through the holes of your galvanized chain and you're gonna get hung up. Here's the thing. We've never had that happen, knock on wood, but it's never happened to us. I did the tire tube hack for 2 years.
The hack is you take a tire tube, you wrap it around, you put the chain
cut
through
the
it.
tube.
Yep, cut the tube so that it's basically, and then you put a zip tie on either end. So this whole thing is wrapped in bike tube. Again, keep stuff out of the inside of the chains is what you would think. You end up just getting river stank. So you just get tons of river water and goop and gunk in there, and it lives there until your entire chain and or
erodes.
Just rots.
It, like, the galvanized metal actually decays and breaks.
Insane.
And if you don't use the tube, it holds up for years.
I've only ever bought 4 of these chains in my entire fishing career.
Yeah, and Paul has another great option for a carabiner. So this is a triangle style.
Right.
If you can get the triangle, do the triangle. It's much better. I had to go.
Chains on it easier.
Yep, I had to go super big with my carabiner to make that work. So you can see the differences there. So there's some options. Again, I'd still recommend the lockable option. Not that it's guaranteed to happen. It's pretty thick gauge chain. You'll probably be fine, but it's just something I like to have for
Peace
security.
of mind, baby.
Exactly. So let's show this thing retract real quick. Shoot. Deployed. Now it's up. Now it's down. Wait. Now it's up. Now it's down. Now it's up.
And look, that's how easy it is. That's why we always, one of the things that I always put on my kayaks really ends up being an anchor wizard. And if you're a river fisherman, this is where it all starts. With this one change, you go from just being like, I'm paddling all the time to I have cruise control in the river full time.
And pick up your trash. Why you want this off the bow in the river, if you want to get the best casting position, you actually want to cast up current. So if the current's coming towards me, I want to be facing that way.
Why?
And I want to cast up because then I get a good drift. So imagine those fish are sitting in these spots. You want to have as much time in front of their faces as possible. So I want a good drift. If I'm casting downstream, I'm getting this much of a drift. If I cast upstream, up into the current, it's going to go way up and then have a really long drift all the way back down. So by having this at the bow, I'm facing into that current. I can just pin my position there, and I can fan cast. I can hit that 45-degree angle and get a super long drift and catch more fish. What you doing, Paul?
So I'm actually going to do the exact same thing that Jeff did. I have a couple other factors to consider because my kayak is a little different. I have a wonderful mounting option here on the Smallie. This actually is set up as a 4-bolt pattern, but you'll notice I don't have a puck or a plate on here for an insert. So I'm going to use a track mount, just something a little different to show you something different. This is the 4-incher from Yak Attack. I probably should have gotten 6 in full transparency. I just didn't. And so what I'm going to do here, I could just mount this straight up right here, but I'm going to try this first. I really like this idea of being able to take it on and off. But I'm actually going to use bolts, and mine are not going to be 1/4 20 because the holes in this one are not 1/4 20. So I found the appropriate bolt washer and locking nut. You see that little rubber gasket in there? That means that with vibrations and stuff, that is not going to come loose. Another thing, since I'm drilling through the hull, is I do have, like, you can use Marine Goop, G-O-O-P is the brand. The E6000 is a little harder, but I tend to like this one. It's just whatever you have access to. You just need something that's going to flex a little bit and not just melt with the heat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, again, just figure out my positioning here. Again, mine's over here. One thing to keep in mind is if you have a front hatch, you don't want your line getting in the way of opening your hatch. So I'm going to make sure that that's the case. This one, because it's such a small kayak, I'm able to really easily just find a mounting option like so. And this actually ends up being about perfect. You can see within the track, I have a place to go here and here. Should be pretty smooth.
Measure 0 times, drill 3 times.
That's why I have it.
I just put up
That's why I have it 3 times.
All right, so we want to show you guys the 2 rigs, just a couple of modifications we made that we feel make it more efficient, get it, on the river and make it more fun for you. You got it. So walk through my rig first and then we'll show you Paul's. So this is the New Canoe Unlimited. So this is a 12-foot plus kayak, and I find that it's fantastic on the river, especially if you add a motor onto this thing. But if you have to paddle, you still can paddle. So up front, we already showed you the Anchor Wizard off the bow. Really excited about that. One other thing that we did that was a really quality hack, I would say, is we took bike handlebar wraps and we wrapped it around the handles on both ends of this kayak to make it more comfortable. So it's super cheap, it's easy to do. You heat it up, you wrap it around, it's adhesive, and then you add a little bit of tape on either end. It's not going to be the most beautiful thing in the world, but it sure do be comfortable. So we did that there, and then we also got it on the back handle here, which is nice because this is metal, and in the summer days, what's that do? Scald ya. It's not fun. Going back, one mod that I really like is I would recommend grabbing a Yak Attack Roto Grip, just a single one, put it on an angle, lay it in the front of your boat, and this keeps my net in place. So if I get hung up in the trees or, you know, precarious situations occur on the river, I don't lose my net. Even though this floats, there's a current out there, so I can very easily lose my net as it runs away from me. So I like having that in there. One of the new things we're testing out today, we've got the Yak Attack seat cushion. This just came out, so we will report back to you. I have the I think I got the firm seat on mine, and Paul got the softy boy. So that may or may not have been a mistake. We'll find out later on in the day. But we're going to test that out. That should be a lot of fun. This thing is huge. So I think this is an awesome accessory that everybody should get from New Canoe. So this is actually a side tray that bolts directly to your swivel seat here. And the cool thing about this is you can mount your controller of choice. So we have the Newport. If you have a Torqeedo, you can do the same thing. But you can flush mount it with this little plate that they sell as well. And that's really nice because now when I'm swiveling, that controller goes with me rather than being in the way, 1, or 2, having to be way up here, because the Unlimited, the spacing on this track is definitely not ideal for a controller setup. You really want to have it right next to the seat. So that's awesome. Also, you get to feel like you're in a TIE fighter in Star Wars, which is sick. Coming back, I would always recommend a waterproof bag of some sort. So we're rocking the Yak Gadget bag here, and that is holding boat snacks for the day. It also has a couple zipper pockets, so it's just really nice for your extra stuff, right? You could stuff your rain gear in here or whatever throughout the day, so I find that to be really convenient. Moving back here, we've got something new to test today for me. Not that it's new to the rest of the world, but I've always rocked a 16x16 black pack. So we now have the 13x13, which is much more convenient for your river setups. I added a track pack on top. This is gonna stow like your, just random stuff. So I've got a couple parts in here. I've got our scale, and then I've got my Newport controller magnet, right? So, boop, wake up, Newport. She's awake. So track pack's nice and convenient on top there. In the short stack is where I'm going to keep my plastics for the day. And then underneath that, it's fresh. So it's like, these latches are strong right now until I break this sucker in. Inside, you're gonna have a little extra storage here. So I got some extra plastics, and then you can fit a bunch of 3600s. This will not fit 3700 size boxes. You gotta get the 13 by 16 or the 16 by 16 to do that. But there's plenty of room for 3600s in here. So I've got crankbaits, I've got swim baits, I've got terminal, and then I've got kind of a day box going in the Busby there. Now this one does only come with 3 rod holders, so I actually took it. So I actually took one off of another Yak Attack kit that I had, so now I have 4 on this. Now on the river, I will say this, we will not be vertically storing these because you get into those tight spots on the river where the trees overhang a bunch, and that will take your rods. Ask me how I know.
You want to have your rod storage be diagonally and backwards. That keeps them low, but it still keeps them accessible. One hack is the taco clip. It's a really simple, really low profile rod holder, and actually the Smalley's nice because it has the space right here. You pop them right on and now your rods are diagonally facing this direction. You can mount these on the side of your black pack if you so choose. They've got holes right there to do so. Just line them up and get them horizontal. You can use gear track that way too. There's a lot of options for mounting without using the big boys. You can mount some things vertically and backwards, or you just get a regular rod holder. You angle it backwards and put it on your gear track. So just a couple of ways that you can get your rods angled backwards, swept back, still accessible, but not getting caught up in every single tree you go through.
Another thing I find to be really valuable in terms of a mod would be to get the single roto grips for the Yak Attack leaderboard. So we have the Yak Attack leaderboard here. Really nice bump board, goes up to 28 inches. Would love to catch a 28 incher today. Wouldn't that be insane? World record, baby. And then you look here, we have the single version. They actually have one that's like a Y shape that sticks out. The problem with that is that it sticks out. And on the river, you really don't want things overhanging because again, you get to those tight, choked out sections of the river, you're going to run into things. That causes problems. The leaderboard floats, but you will knock it overboard and then you got to chase it downstream. Not fun. So you put the singles back here and that brings it closer inside the boat. And then you just take your leaderboard and you pop that on there. I would also say with your leaderboard setup, you always want the wheels on the outside. That way, if this gets knocked at all, it falls into your boat versus out of your boat. So just make sure you have it rigged the right way. Last thing for me, highly recommended. If you're going to run a big stretch of river, you're gonna want a motor. It just makes life easier. I know that that can be a big expense. So I will say there are a lot of cheap DIY ways to do this or budget variations of this. So check out videos on the internet for that. YouTube's full of options, all right? But we are rocking specifically the Newport NK300 on mine and the NK180 Pro on Paul's Smalley. With those motors, we're able to push ourselves to different sections of the river that we otherwise would never have time to get to, which is really cool.
We're talking like 15, 20 miles.
If we want to go real far, we can go real far. So you just pick a spot to drop in and you just run that river and go find those fish. We have found that like totally unlocked river fishing for us. So if it's something you can afford to do, we'd highly recommend it. If you can find a DIY way to just get yourself a little more speed on the water, we'd recommend that too. Just get moving. Something with a Newport that we find really nice though is we get this low pro battery. So that sits really low, obviously low pro, in the kayak, and you can just slide it underneath your seat. It even fits, you'll see this on Paul's, underneath this very tiny amount of space inside of the Crescent Smalley, which is really cool and hyper convenient. Because let's say worst case scenario, you were to flip. That thing is stuck under that seat. The seat is strapped down. You're not losing your battery. For me, I ended up just throwing in a little vertical tie down and running it around the handle. That way, worst case scenario, if something were to happen, even if I tip, it's going to be hanging on by that strap. All right, so now we jump over to Paul's kayak, and yes, I'm wearing 2 hoods. It's Michigan. It started out at 36 degrees. It ends the day at 70 degrees. Fun. All right, so let's go through Paul's Crescent Smalley. Again, this just dropped April 10th of this year. This boat is 10'7". So it's, we like to call it the baby Shoaly. Like it's a little bit smaller than the Shoaly, but it still has a lot of the modern features that you're looking for, which is really cool. We've done a whole walkthrough on this, link in the description below. But here's a couple of mods that we've made for it. So one, and go right to the catchboard deck here. So this is designed for the plastic catchboard. The metal catchboard doesn't fit as well, so Paul added a little bit of a spacer to these little locking thingies here, whatever you want to call them, so he can use a metal catchboard in this, which is really nice, and it just keeps it out of the way, kind of almost flush to the floor, which is really convenient. So front to back, we'll get to the Anchor Wizard in a second because you're almost done with it. Hurry up, I want to fish. We got the little lockdown paddle holder here, which it's, you know, Crescent, they are paddle kayaks, so he uses his paddle a lot for positioning with this. Even with the motor, where you typically we'll use the motor to run upriver as far as we can, and then to position into spots you want to use your paddles as well. That's why mine is on the side. Paul's is in a really convenient position here, so you can just grab it and quickly move, which is nice. And then he's got the same roto grip set up for his net, so the net will lock in right there and it lays up over the hatch. Moving back, Smully has really convenient spaces on the side of the seat, so he's going to throw some of his tackle boxes in here. We got one on this side and one on that side, both 3600, but it will fit 37s in there as well. It's got the same Yak Gadget pack back here. Look at all them snackies in this baby. And then we got our scale, all that other stuff. I showed you guys before, he's got his low pro battery down under the seat. Look, very much out of the way. That is really cool. And then check this out. So this is...
I did Nike and Adidas here.
So this is the Yak Attack X New Canoe Short Stack. It's designed to live on its own rather than being on top of a black pack, which is really cool because this creates under seat storage. It's 13 by 16 size. You can see you just flip up the hinge there. Now Paul is using this as his main storage for the day. You can see he has no crate. This man has no crate.
You know, so this is the short stack lid, so it's the exact same lid. Yep. I'm calling it the short snack, okay? Because look at that, you pop that in there. It is basically just a little tiny, a little baby crate here.
Decent amount of space in there, and I just ruined everything.
No, it's all good. It's a lot of space, which is really convenient. You still put your gear track here, your gear track here, whatever you want. And I just strapped it in using the Crescent.
So you ain't going nowhere.
That it comes with. Super easy, super low pro, not a big deal. I like that a lot though.
And like if you have the space under your seat like I do in the New Canoe, or you do in your New Canoe U10, you can just pop it underneath the seat as well, which is really cool. So it's like plastic storage and tackle and all that.
Put a track pack up here if you want, and then when you're using all these, not a big deal, you can still do your track pack.
Pretty neat.
One thing I want to show people is that you actually have free foot steering with a lot of your kayaks and you didn't even know it. So this Smully comes pre-plumbed, meaning there's actually a cable or a tube on the inside here for you to run your cabling all the way over here to the front of the kayak where you're actually going to have your attachment point. Now, these are the pedals that come with the Smully. I did cut mine down a little just to make some space, but all you got to do is take these little red clips that are in the back, you just pop them off, and you now have movable foot steering. This was $0 which is super convenient. I'm gonna try some other options here later, but just as a quick fix to get it run, I ran the cabling, I put this little blocker here. This is the same tube that's on the inside, and I tied them right here, and now I've got foot steering in the back. Super easy, which I thought, you know, a little hack there. So if you want to save like $190, you can do that.
Foot steering is not cheap. Also, those red clips, they actually are designed to lock this into place. So when you paddle, you have something to press against, and it gives you a little more power in that paddle.
That's right.
Power paddle.
Power paddle.
All right, y'all, we're gonna go hit the water. We're gonna talk through some of these things as we get to testing them on the water and let you know our thoughts on them, and hopefully catch some fish. All right, you guys, that was a fun little trip. Did you have fun, Paul?
It was a jaunt. We got a big fish, and it was finally me. Let's go.
Excuse me. Also caught an over 3-pounder. Get out of here, guy.
I finally get one, and I can't even have it.
Go.
No, it was super fun. It's always good to get on the river and catch a few fish.
Yeah, so earlier on, I caught all my fish. Later on, Paul caught all his fish, and then I was MIA on catching.
We all
but
were.
The main purpose of this video though was to check out the rigs, make sure the mods were working. I feel like they're all working. Really happy with the drag chain setup. We got our chutes off the front. That's fantastic. The current was not here today though, so we didn't really have to do much with those, but they do function, which is what we came for. The Yak Attack seats were insanely comfortable. What would you say?
They're very comfy. You do need to strap them down. Every time I scooted forward, the thing would come with me and I'd be like, ah, dang it. So Jeff has this
mine is zip tied.
I will be. Jeff's is zip tied, which is fine. I will probably just do a strap, maybe with a clip or something, maybe a bungee with a clip on one side. And that's probably what I'm going to do. That way I can go from yak to yak. But dude, comfort-wise, I'm surprised at how much I liked it. I've never had one. I've never used one. I've never really wanted to. I was like, it's extra. I've never needed it. Now I think it's like, now that you've got it, you kind of would, every time you sit in a seat, you'd be like, oh, I kind of wish I had my comfy seat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I love that.
Newports, as always, performed really well. So I had a good time. We were ripping. We were doing a lot of speed tests. We were racing each other a little bit there.
We did.
Had a lot of fun running around with the motors. And that's it, y'all. We got to go home now. We are way down river. And we got to go all the way back up that way and get the heck out of here. So
I've got the zoomies. Let's do it.
Let's go. As always, if you guys have any questions on the gear that we're testing or the mods that we've made, feel free to drop a comment below and we'd be happy to answer you and give you some ideas of your own. Other than that, smash the like, stay subscribed, all that cool stuff, and we'll catch you guys on the water next time. Bye.